Because future-looking statements are inherently subject to risk and uncertainty, our reminder is that you should make any purchasing decisions or investment decisions based on products that are currently commercially available.
Hello, admins, and thank you for tuning in to learn even more about building a single source of truth for your company. My name is Kitaki Rao. I'm a director of product management in the Marketing Cloud, and I focus specifically on our CDP, a customer data platform that's a tool for marketers, and it's called Customer 360 Audiences. I'm also joined by my very awesome colleague, Marla Hay, who is the Senior Director in charge of Privacy and Security at Salesforce. Today, we're going to give an overview of Customer 360 Truth, our suite of products that's designed to help you build a single source of truth for your customers. We are excited to announce 2 brand new generally available SKUs as part of this launch, and that we will dive into these 2 specifically. The 2 we will talk about are Customer 360 Audiences and Customer 360 Privacy Center. Let's start off with a general overview of single source of truth in general. To build a single source of truth, you need 4 key capabilities. Firstly, you need a way to be able to have customers log in across all applications using a customer identity and access management tool. Secondly, you need a single profile that can connect together the customer data across all of the customer data you have available, and that's done using a data management tool. Thirdly, you need a high-scale B2C store so that all the customer data you're gathering can be stored and leveraged for customer segments. This is typically done with a CDP. And finally, you need a way to manage customer privacy and compliance obligations, and you need to do that at scale. However, integrating multiple systems to capture all this capability is hard. And building custom solutions that cover all 4 of these capabilities is even harder. That's why we came up with Customer 360 Truth. You may have heard about Customer 360 Truth at Dreamforce last year. Since then, we have evolved our Customer 360 Truth into a family of 4 generally available products designed to help businesses build a single source of truth. We had started with Data Manager and Identity, and now we are adding more. We're adding the Salesforce CDP called Customer 360 Audiences, and we're adding Customer 360 Privacy Center. And even more, we're announcing Customer 360 Guides, your path to success and integration within the Salesforce ecosystem with dedicated implementation guides, reference architectures, and much more. With that, let's go dive deep into those 2 key pillars that we have just launched. With Customer 360 Audiences, you can build and activate segments at scale across any channel. You can connect your data across marketing channels, segment and enrich marketing, enable personalization anywhere, provide analytics and insights, and now let's take a look at it in action. This is the Customer 360 Audiences landing page where you see basic analytics about your instance. Let's start at data streams where we can import data into Customer 360 Audiences. There are many ways to bring data in, but today let's look at Marketing Cloud. With Marketing Cloud, you can bring data in as starter data bundles where the data is pre-selected and pre-mapped into the reference model, or alternately, you can choose data extensions where you can bring in any custom data. So that's how you would bring data into Audiences. And once you've done that, you'll see your data stream show up in this list of data streams you see on the screen. This next step after bringing data in is to map it. So we're looking at one of the data streams that was created with a starter bundle. So it was automatically mapped. And you'll see here how the attributes that are showing up on the left side of the screen are mapped into objects from the core reference model on the right side of the screen. So already mapped into contact point app and the device objects. Because this was part of the starter bundle, it was done automatically, but if you wanted to edit it, you would simply click on the button here and be able to add any of the standard objects from the reference model or even create your own custom object. So that's step 2, that's modeling and harmonizing the data to our common data model. You can now look at all of the objects that are in the system under the data model tab. And here you can pick on any one of the objects and see which data streams feed into it. Here, for example, you can see there are 4 data streams that populate the individual object. And you can also go into relationships and see how this object is connected to other objects in the platform. So you can see here, individual is connected to many other objects. Now data is in the system and harmonized, so let's go into Data Explorer where you can view this data. Data Explorer lets you see data both at the source level, so data that's being brought in, and at the modeled level, so post-modeling. And let's look again at the individual object. You'll see a sampling of different records from the individual object on the screen, and you can also filter down to see specific records or even one particular record. So now we've done a good sanity check of data is in the system. As a next step, let's go into identity resolution to set up our match and merge rules for unification. You'll see here that the resolution has been run before. There were about 2.4 million individuals unified into about 1 million customer records. And this was done using two match rules, exact email and exact phone number, which means any records that had the same email or the same phone numbers were unified. You'll also see here reconciliation rules, which are rules for specifying how the unified customer record should be created. Let's next go into segmentation, where marketers spend most of their time. And let's segment on unified individual, which is the object created post-unification. Let's give it a segment name, and we can specify a publish schedule at this point. I'll just leave it as don't refresh, which means it's refresh on demand, but you can choose different publish schedules from that option. Once the segment template is created, you'll see we start out with the same approximately 1 million population that was generated for unified individuals, and you can easily drag in an attribute. Here I've got first name Mark, enter that in and click on recount to get an immediate idea of what the new count is with this filter added. So quick way to get your population counts as you're building segments and planning your media. Adding another attribute here that's related to the individual's profile. And I can also add related attributes that are attributes on objects that have relationships to the individual, including contact points or engagements. So in this case, I'm adding a rule that says I want to see at least one click that happened for this same individual. So I want to see all records where first name is Mark, last name is Benioff, and have clicked on email at least once. I can choose to do an and or an or, and when I'm done, I click on done. Now that the segment's available, I can activate it. To start activation, I'll select an activation target. I've chosen to activate to Marketing Cloud. I've chosen to include email and phone number, and I've chosen to include person name in my activation. And the last step here is to name my activation, and that's it. Now, whenever the segment gets refreshed, the activation automatically kicks off and sends that data to the activation channel, to Marketing Cloud in this case. So that was a demo of Customer 360 Audiences. I hope you enjoyed it. And now I'll hand over to my colleague, Marla Hay.
Thank you so much for that overview of Customer 360 Audiences, Ketaki. I'm Marla Hay. I'm the Senior Director of Product for Security and Privacy. And let's see how privacy and archiving contributes to building a single source of truth for your company. With Privacy Center, you can manage your full data lifecycle, automate data subject rights, unify consent and preferences, and visualize compliance. Let's see it in action. As customer data comes together, a key thing to review and align on is how you're protecting data privacy. You'll need to align with your organization's policies and, most importantly, comply with legal regulations like GDPR and CCPA. You can do that with Customer 360 Privacy Center, a new suite of easy-to-use tools that enables you to take control of privacy management. You can dive into the portability policies, the retention policies, the right to be forgotten policies, consent event stream, and find links to resources and trails on the right, making it easy to access, de-identify, delete, or enable portability of data on request. For example, you can set up a custom policy to meet privacy regulations around data subject rights for your customers in California. Your new data subject access policy enables you to extract exactly what data you have on the contact in the database at any time and provide that securely to the customer via API. And if you've used the individual object to unify duplicate records discovered through Customer 360 Data Manager and tie to records in Customer 360 Audiences, You can use this single starting point to retrieve all the data for your customer across different records in this org. Okay, so this is super helpful for compliance with existing customers. But what about expired or inactive customers? Well, with Customer 360 Privacy Center, we can create a new policy to archive inactive or unused data. We can set a frequency for running this and set specific conditions like an expired contact. So once we've set filter criteria, which we'll access here on this contact record, we can activate the filter and set a condition. So with the example condition that we're going to use here is deleted. So we'll set is deleted to equals true to basically say, hey, we want to get rid of these customers who are no longer customers anymore. Once you set that policy, now you can save it and you've got a policy ready to go. So now all you'll need to do is activate that retention policy and it will run along the frequency that you've set. And if we ever need to access the data, we can add a view into the archive data whenever we need it, using external objects and Salesforce Connect to view, search, display, or report on archive data right in our Salesforce interface. Finally, you can subscribe to any changes on consent or data rights to ensure that updates to your customers' SSOT consent and preferences are synced to the rest of your ecosystem. So we've seen how, in just a few minutes, you're able to create a new data rights and retention policy to comply with national, international, and local regulations and manage everything from a single place with Customer 360 Privacy Center. And that's how you're able to deliver privacy and compliance fast to your single source of truth. So a lot of you might be asking yourselves, okay, great, you just gave me a ton of information, a ton of great information, right? But what do I do now? Where do I go? Who do I talk to? How do I get started, like practically speaking, on all of this? And so I'll say from the Privacy Center perspective, one of the things you can do right out of the gate is talk to the people in charge of either compliance or privacy legal, and ask them questions about how are we complying with GDPR? How are we complying with CCPA or CPRA, the now two California privacy laws, or in Brazil, the Brazilian data privacy law, et cetera. How are we doing that? And how are we doing it with Salesforce? And can I help you with facilitating some of this with some of the things that have come out? So that's one area. The other is the data archiving is really a fantastic way to reduce data costs. So your IT department, whomever is paying that bill, whomever is keeping an eye on how your overages or keeping an eye on like whether or not you're going to need to buy more storage eventually, or keeping an eye on performance queries. Those are great people to talk to say, hey, how are we doing? We've got some options for doing things like data retention, data elimination, data archiving that might help with things like that. Another resource in that area are people who are actually using the system. So if your service agents are trying to find cases and it's super hard because it's slowing down for them, archiving old cases can help reduce that performance burden, make it move faster for them. So those are some places where you can get started to help kind of like move forward and really be kind of like a leader in the space of how do we make sure we're taking broader compliance, cost savings, legal regulations and bringing them into the Salesforce instance and really making it a leader in that space. So that's where we go for Privacy Center. So Ketaki, I'll kick it over to you to talk, see what you think about on the Customer 360 audiences side.
Sure. Thank you, Marla. I learned a lot from that response as well. So for audiences, it's a tool built for marketers. So I would start with your marketing team, the digital marketing team, and just try to understand what's the marketing strategy. What are the types of marketing campaigns they're running right now? What data do they use already? What are the personalization capabilities built in-house? And that'll give you an idea of what's the business use case for Customer 360 audiences. Are you trying to personalize on the website? Are you trying to personalize email marketing, SMS marketing, in-app messaging? With that information, you will know how data will be sent out of audiences. And then the next step will be, this is what my marketer wants to do. Where can I get the data that helps them achieve this goal? So then it'll be about figuring out from different teams in your company that own data. So probably the IT teams that have access to data, how that data is stored. Is it in Salesforce systems? Is it in offline files? Is it in with an App Exchange partner? Figuring out those details will help you bring data into audiences. And now you will have a strategy for bringing data in, mapping it to a model, and then taking it out to specific places where it can be used right away. So that would be one way to proceed with audiences. And, of course, please feel free to reach out to the account team. There are lots of great people in the Salesforce side who will be happy to consult and share information as well.
Thank you again for joining to learn about Customer 360 Truth, Customer 360 Audiences, and Customer 360 Privacy Center. Come join us on Trailhead to learn more. There's a Customer 360 Truth trail mix to dive even deeper into the full suite of products to put your customer in the center of everything you do. For those of you who want to learn the details of your implementation path, you can find our Customer 360 guides to the single source of truth at trailhead.salesforce.com/guides. Thank you so much for joining.